Yeah, well, first of all, Embiid needs Mr. Miyagi doing this and then rubbing that stuff like he did on the Karate Kid to get his knee right, because that's the only fucking guy, God rest his soul, but...
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another week of basketball. We're post All-Star break, getting to the tail end of the season. Teams prepping for their playoff spots. NBL and its FIBA break kicks off again next week with the finals starting off. So a lot going on in the world of the NBA and Australian basketball and pro. Some nice plays on the whiteboard there. I can't really understand too much of them. Is that a drawing of you above?
Yeah.
Is that a drawing of you? To be a
Absolutely.
That little snow.
Yeah, mine wouldn't be able to fit in the picture. So,
looks like a little snowman up
and
there.
It didn't do me much good. Actually, Jameer Nelson had the best name for me once. I had the white dry fit Dallas Maverick shirt on, and he goes, you look like a melted ball of mozzarella." Probably one of the best lines. Jameer Nelson, by probably top 5 funniest dudes I've ever been around. I mean, he was great. But yeah, so this was a whole thing for the last month. I've been working out. The Dallas Wings, the WNBA team around here, had me working out their starting center. And then also applied for their director of player development job that I got rejected for today. So yeah, that made me feel good about myself by far. So that's what I was dealing with this week. Funny story, weird story. So they had someone in mind. I guess it went south, and the head coach, good guy, rookie coach, came and said, "Hey, do you want to apply for this job since you're working out one of our girls?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So so I figured he's asking because now they're sort of in crisis mode. They need somebody. So I figured I had it. And then I met with a GM, assistant GM, met with him, talked to him. And then, tried to improve the girls' free throw shooting. She made 50 in a row the other day. So doing my job, feeling good about it, and, drew up some stuff to do. And yeah, found out today that I wasn't having it. So
who'd you lose out to? Do you know yet?
Have no idea, but I'll find out soon.
I think it was some guy named Joe Smith from Division 4 NAI junior college or something. I heard got it over you.
Yeah. Maybe Joanne Smith. I don't think it would be a Joe Smith.
Oh, is it? It has to be it's the between your legs.
No, I don't know.
No,
I have no idea. But great. I mean, yeah.
That sucks.
So that was it. Well, yeah. During my interview, though, it was funny and embarrassing at the same time. We were at this. I was with a GM and someone else in the front office, and we were at a coffee shop. So we were in like relaxed chairs, sort of low to the ground. And then the assistant, the other person in the front office was sitting in front of me, but he was on an elevated stool, right? So I'm looking at the GM. GM's asking me a question, and then I'll be maybe sort of looking in front of me, but eye level is this dude's crotch the whole interview. So Bogues, I'm it's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. I'm saying to myself, stop looking straight. So I look to the GM, and then I'm just sort of spacing out, just sort of thinking of my answer to the question. And I'm like, this guy's gonna think something that I'm not doing right now, but I can't stop because it's in front of me. Literally, that's my view in front. So I don't know. Maybe I got a harassment suit without having to harass anybody. I have no idea, but yeah, I thought it was good pay. It was a good job. I like working with WNBA players. I work with their best player. I figured I had some type of going for the job, but yeah, I found out today, Bogues.
It'd be interesting to see. Who gets it over you, pro. That's what I'm interested to see. We'll circle back in a week or two.
Yeah, or a day or two. Yeah. Who knows?
We're not going to do team of the week this week because it's kind of mundane. There's only been 1 or 2 games for each team. So what we're going to do is
sure.
I want to pick your brain and just give one team from each of us that isn't kind of getting a lot of pub. So not your top 2, top 3 teams generally. The West is kind of wide open bar OKC, but in the East you wouldn't be Cleveland, Boston, or New York. Give me one team you think has a chance to upset in a playoff series as we get to the end of the season.
So we're just going to do one team total.
Just one team each, either conference.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go Indiana, Bogues. I was going to go Memphis, but they're 2. I'm thinking if there's a team that's going to sort of make another run, I think it's Indiana. First of all, I don't think there's many other coaches than Rick Carlisle that could be more prepared for another team. Like maybe one game you could get them, but over a series, making changes. They're a really good offensive team. Halliburton still hasn't played great over a stretch of games. I still think his best basketball this year is ahead of him for sure. With Siakam and Turner and those guys, and they get a good bench. They fight. They're like I said, you know, he does. Like I said, I've always said this. We're not on each other's Christmas card list, but I think the guy could really put together a game plan for a team in a series. I wouldn't want to play them. They've got a lot of firepower. They've got, they got great offense. Their defense is shaky, but Miles Turner in the middle and some of the other things that they can do. And like their bench is just always attacking you. They're always going hard. They could score. I like their bench with Toppin and Mathurin and McConnell. And I think they could definitely make some noise in the playoffs. But I know last year they did it, Bogues, but I'm a fan of their team. I think they're prepping. Orlando, was another team I thought about in this conference, but I don't know, I don't know if they have enough, but I definitely think Indiana's a team that can make a run.
Yeah, so they're 4 at the moment. So obviously that you're saying they'll get through the first round and then potentially upset one of those top 3 seeds is what you're saying. They're the best chance in the lower. I think Orlando's a good one as well. They've been playing kind of pretty poorly as they've gotten healthier, which has been interesting. They played almost a bit of type of basketball when they were kind of like super banged up towards the middle of that season, but they've been struggling a little bit. But I'm going to go with a little bit of bias here and probably eat my words a little bit. I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors.
Golden State.
Yep. Because I didn't think the Jimmy Butler thing would move the needle that much. Great player, but I just thought the shooting. But their defense has just soared. Small sample size. They're 4-1, which we'll touch on in the stats. Useful, useless with him. But they are getting to the free throw line too. And that's I commented on Mike on Dunleavy Jr.'s comments when they signed him, saying that we signed him because we don't get to the free throw line enough. He's a notorious free throw line getter. He gets there 6, 7, 8, 9 times a game. He's smart. He's crafty. Pump fakes. He's kind of like one of those guards that is probably more inside based. Really good at posting guards up, and they've looked much better. They're just much more steady and calm with him on the floor. And their defense now, you got him and Draymond. You got an elite wing. It's kind of reminds me a little bit of when Iguodala was there with Draymond. You got an elite wing with an elite big. I mean, they're probably a team as of today. They're 9. Let's say they get through both those planes and they're playing. Let's say they get through that 8. OKC doesn't want to see them out of anyone. I think in that lower portion, Dallas is in there as well. They probably don't want to see, but I think Golden State has a chance if they can get in that 7 to 8 game. They could beat a Memphis potentially in a series, in my opinion. I really like Memphis, but I think they're a really good regular season team. But if I have to pick a flyer, I'm going with the Golden State Warriors just because they got one of the best shooters of all time. Jimmy's a nice bit of spice to what they've already got there. Draymond, it's probably their, literally, we've said this numerous times, it'd be their last hurrah to try to get to a, second round, third round conference finals. If they've got one in them, this is probably the season. Next year a little bit older, but they're kind of the one that sticks out for me with that trade.
Bogues, it's tough when you're trying to evaluate a trade based on how Jimmy was acting, how Butler was acting over the last month to 2 months with that team. And it sort of sours you on, oh, we're really going to trade for this guy. But you got to understand it. It's like anything else in this game is, everything begins well with Jimmy and then it ends badly. It's a bad breakup on all the teams that he's ever been on. But when he's engaged, he's pretty damn good. And you don't want to see that going into a trade because all you see is, the complaining, the missing, taking himself out of games, not wanting to come off the bench, all these things that happen in Miami when it was going bad there. And then everyone's like, oh, is it really going to help the non-shooting and things? Look, he's extremely tough. And like you said, he gets to the free throw line a bunch. He gets to the free throw line every 3.4 minutes. All right. And just put that in comparison, Buddy Hield goes to the line every 29.3 minutes. So, yeah, you're right. He gets to the free throw line, but he's that tough enforcer that could actually impact the scoreboard. Draymond really can't. He's that tough guy that really can't impact it. He's never really been that type. They need somebody who could score, but score every night. Take a little bit of pressure off of Steph and some of the other guys, and be able to consistently score, consistently get to the rim, consistently just have like flair. He's like a WWF wrestler. He's got that sort of aura around him, and he really can help. And I agree with you. They're a tough foul. Like Steph Curry, Steph's still got plenty left. You got Jimmy in there. You got Kuminga's been playing well. The one guy they got to really get energized to get ready to go is Buddy Hield. I thought that Buddy Hield would have more of an impact on the game than he's had, this season for sure. Averaging 11 points a game, only shooting 36 from the three. I expected more. I expected 15, 16, 17 points a game, being able to stretch the floor with the shooting and then attack off the dribble from there. But he really hasn't given him that consistent punch yet, and there's still a little bit of season left, so he can do that. Kuminga, I really want to see him continue to, to progress, averaging 17 and 5 this year. I really want to see where he's going to be, because they still need, more people stepping up, taking things off Steph's plate. And I think the Butler trade is going to be good for them, down the line. They could definitely potentially get into the conversation of maybe dethroning somebody, from the higher seeds. Memphis is playing great. I don't know if it will be Oklahoma City, but Memphis, I could see them at least going 6 or 7 with Memphis, and that being a really competitive series. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, but I mean, imagine a lineup. You got Steph Curry, Hield, Kuminga, Butler, Draymond for your death small ball lineup. I mean, it's a very mobile lineup. They got shooting, they got defense. Post has been playing well for them off the bench too. Big that can shoot threes. They've got a nice balance on that roster, and yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how it all goes. But they're definitely playing better basketball, and it is early. It's a honeymoon period for them. They just got Jimmy. Everything's all rosy right now. They haven't really had much adversity, so it'll be interesting to see once they have some. But I really like the way they're playing. All right, just before we start, there has been NBA history has been set at the All-Star game last weekend. Pro, do you know what it was?
Lowest viewership of all time.
Besides that,
I mean. No,
it is
I have no idea.
The first All-Star game to have load management.
Really?
Yeah. Well, LeBron.
Give me some background,
LeBron
brother.
James didn't play. He load managed.
Oh,
He load managed. And why I bring this up is it's neither here or there that he didn't play. You took someone else's fucking spot. Like, that's what's harsh about it. Like, generally, for those not familiar, injuries happen leading up to All-Star games after the votes happen, after the teams are announced. There's an injury. There's a next guy, the 13th guy that didn't make it gets potted up, and that could be his first All-Star game. You've now taken someone else's spot. You've rocked up in street clothes to still do your photos and PR. I just thought it was bad as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, maybe had a niggle, and I'm all for guys that are like, you know what, my body doesn't feel right. I've done enough of these things. I'm not gonna do it. Then just don't go. Stay away. Go do your thing, and let the league know at least enough time so they can replace the guy. Pro. I just thought it was pretty poor form for LeBron to kind of do that.
Conspiracy theorists have been circling that story about him not playing in the All-Star game and coming, dressed the way he was. I didn't really even notice it, to be honest with you, Bobes. I remember reading something about it the day or two after. I don't really care. I see your point, though, about taking somebody's spot. So they said, one, he was protesting one of two things. He was either protesting the new format, not liking the format of how things were going. I guess Draymond might have seconded it, if I read correctly. Although it could have been NBA Central.
Draymond said it's not right for right. I didn't. Caleb just filled me in on how it even worked. I didn't even pay attention to it. But the Draymond said the Rising Stars shouldn't have the privilege or the honor to play on All-Star Sunday.
I mean, he sort of has a point.
He does.
Though,
I think he's right. I think it just.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the format. Like, you want new formats and things like that. Like that's we're all victim to. Somebody had an idea in a pitch meeting about having the Rising Stars, and they're trying to trying to go at these all-stars to have them play harder. I mean, talk about not reading the room. If these guys don't want to play hard, they're not going to want to play hard. You could throw them $10 million a piece. If they don't want to play hard, they're not going to play hard. The second thing was, and I thought this was way out of left field, about them maybe things aren't going great with the ownership deal and giving them a team or ownership stake in the Vegas deal. I think that was preposterous and not true. I could definitely see him protesting that a little bit about the new format. But then again, Bogues, like, I don't know, like, it's how these guys dress, and like, that's a 3-piece suit tuxedo compared to what these fucking guys dress like on game, like when they're not playing in games on the sideline. So who knows? I mean, they're free to do almost anything they want to do.
I got no issue with how he dressed,
but
I just got an issue with showing up. Like, just if
Yeah.
you're not going to play, no problem. Like, if your knee's messed up a week before, say, hey, my knee, I'm not going to play. I'd rather get that 5 days rest for my Lakers run to the finals, playoffs. No problem. Cool. Got it. You're just taking a young guy's spot that could have been his first All-Star game, right? Like, that's just poor form. In my opinion, that's poor form. Whether it is a protest, I didn't read into those conspiracy theories. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But
no, I didn't either.
I think either way, it's just a shitty way to go. Joel Embiid just breaking now has 76ers and Joel Embiid are consulting doctors and considering alternative options on his injured knee. Signs of hope for progress in Embiid's body, but his efforts to play and current treatments, including injections, have not provided any improvement. So, this has been something that, I guess, when he signed that extension, the big one, that always knew there was some issues with that knee, and it's probably going to, if you're a betting man, you probably say that it's going to come up earlier in his career path than later. Like, most guys' knees generally start going, bigs at least, early to mid-30s, and we're about at that range. How old is he, by the way? Was he 31, 30, 31, 32?
He's 30 years old.
Yeah, so he's probably a little bit earlier than most guys, but he's had that knee issue, and that really hurts him. You watch Philly play right now, it's bad. I mean, Paul George has been on record saying he's playing injured. It just they don't look good. I think it's Maxi's team as much as anyone's now, and they might be close to just pulling the pin and going bang. If this continues this way, bro.
Well, the question I always say, Bogues, when anyone says that to me about pulling the plug and trading this player and that player, and obviously we're talking about Embiid. What would the value be? And I'll get back to that in a second. Look, he's a guy that's battled injuries. He's had injuries since the second he got drafted. He missed literally the first 2 years of his career, with various, I think, foot injuries and things like that, and then the knee, and he's never really been in great shape, and that really hurts him finishing, seasons. I think last year he had a pretty good year with that, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, he didn't have a great playoff run, but MVP and all that, and that's been a big debate in the years past. But like, it is a huge disaster. And look, when you put that team together, I didn't blame them for what they did. They had Maxey there, they had Embiid there. They went all out and got Paul George. I thought that they put a good team together. It's just Embiid's been hurt, George has been out, and I'll tell you what, anybody that's on my fantasy team, Bogues, I've had Portis, Luka traded. I've got Paul George barely played. I think you played more this year than Paul George did. and then I've got Portis, who's out with that drug deal that we'll talk about later for 25 games. But anyways, with Embiid, yeah, I mean, then if you're talking about trade and talking about, like, I don't know how much, like, what are you going to give if you're a team? What are you going to give for Joel Embiid? Are you going to, maybe a plethora of picks, but are you really going to want to invest long-term in Joel Embiid, and give up all these future assets for a guy that might be broken down playing 55 games a year or 45 to 55 games a year? I mean, that's the biggest problem that I would have with that. And then Paul George can get you a little bit, no doubt about it. He could get you probably 5 or 6 picks with some pick swaps and stuff, but nothing really great. And then the salary deal, like, with Embiid, it's a lot of money that you have to take over. Like Embiid's got 51 this year, 55, and a player option for 60 or 59 .03 in 26-27. So, Bobes, it's a very interesting deal in Philly. They got Maxey, he's their young star. You got him under contract, and they could build around him. But I really do think that that's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see where that all ends up. You've got a valid point. It's going to be a hard one to move, but maybe it's a different kind of realm of money. But the Porzingis thing to Boston, maybe there's a way that someone can finagle him and try to help a team put him over the top. So, and then Wemby out as well for the season, pro. So that's a real concerning one. Deep vein thrombosis, I think it is, to blood clot issues potentially. So that one sucks.
Yeah, well, first of all, Embiid needs Mr. Miyagi doing this and then rubbing that stuff like he did on the Karate Kid to get his knee right, because that's the only fucking guy, God rest his soul. But with the Wemby thing, that's a terrible thing to hear, especially somebody that young into his career dealing with an issue like that. Look, we've had other players have to deal with it. I know Chris Bosh had a different type of, different type of blood clotting in his lungs. His didn't reach the lungs, I don't think. I think it was just isolated into that part of the body. Don't quote me on that. I think one of the Thompson twins, the one from Detroit, I think he had some blood clot issues last year that missed most of the year. So, I mean, I'm glad that they got it early. They detected it. They're just going to sit him up for the year. And then they're saying that he'll hopefully make a full recovery by next season. I don't really care about the basketball part. I care about his health going forward. But it seems like this is something that's treatable. But I mean, I don't think they really don't know how it comes about. Like they said, obviously people who are bigger limbs, flies a lot, and things like that. Those things are definitely risk factors to it. But I don't know how you get these types of things in your body. So I have no idea how this sort of came on, and I'm sure we'll get some more information going forward. But it's a terrible blow to the kid, and he's coming into his own this year and doing great. The team was doing much better, and I just hope he has a full recovery from this.
Yeah, you never want to see things like this, especially there's health issues and then there's health issues, right? There's two different baskets of health issues. The first one is injuries, and you're always going to recover from a broken bone or a ligament, but these kind of things that can have life-threatening effects you never want to see for not just an athlete, but anyone in life. Like even your worst enemy, you would hate to have these kind of things. So especially the fact that, that they're starting to play better basketball, and now they're, I assume, going to go straight into tank mode and try to get that number one pick, because they were in the running for a little bit, but that's all gone out the window.
It's very much like when David Robinson went out for the year,
Yep.
the year before they got Tim Duncan. Uncanny.
Imagine they get both.
It's sort of like the same deal.
Imagine they get both.
Imagine if they do that. Imagine if they have that. And then don't forget, OKC probably owns about 12 people out of the lottery picks anyway. So, I mean, I think they'll probably get Cooper Flag. But don't forget, they got Phillies protected. They've got a bunch of teams protected, but they got the top four. But they could have additional 2 or 3 lottery picks. That's crazy. But
100%.
Imagine if San Antonio has what they've got.
With Fox, Wemby,
they've got Castle playing great. Fox, Wemby, him. That's an interesting. How about that though?
Yeah, that'd be super interesting to see that. Speaking of Portis, your guy, 25 games for tramadol abuse. So tramadol is a high end. I don't know if it's narcotic family, but it's a high end pain management pill. Like not one that you just take over the counter or an anti-inflammatory. It's one that you get in hospital. When you're feeling like shit, they give you a tramadol and you feel better. It's one of those ones. So he got caught abusing that shit. He got 25 games. I'm strictly against, performance enhancing. This one, is it performance enhancing? Arguable, because it is managing your pain. You can recover faster, but it's also taking these kind of shit long term can have severe mental health effects and whatnot. So yeah, you got to be careful with it. And just for context, someone posted that Portis got 25 games for tramadol abuse, and Bridges got 30 for DV and a broken face to a female. So just for context, that's where the NBA is at the moment, bro.
I'll tell you what, my fantasy roster needs fucking Tramadol from the pain that I've had this year, but I'm still in first place somehow. Can't Jokic take Tramadol? I mean, can like Shea Alexander take Tramadol? Why does it have to be my guys take Tramadol? It's fucking
It's always bench
unbelievable,
players too. It's always, funnily enough, it's always bench players that get pinged with a drug test, bro. Only one that wasn't that I remember in history is OJ Mayo, but he was like on some hardcore shit where they're just like, bro, we can't hide this. But not saying they hide it, allegedly. But yeah, OJ's the only starter ever. Usually it was like Nick Calathis. Like saw these players that like, what? That's the guy you busted? Really? Have you seen how jacked that guy is? This guy's balding, like has no muscle definition. He pinged for a steroid test? Okay. All right.
I think OJ was like grinding up ivory from a tusk or something. And
he was on like the
injecting
hardcore
it.
party drugs, I
Who the fuck knows what he's
think. He
doing?
was on hardcore party drugs, I believe. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Unbelievable.
But yeah, Portis out. Yeah, so I mean that's a big blow to Milwaukee too. Like they started to play a little bit better before the All-Star break. They're in there in fifth. But
the agent said the agent was I think Mark Bartelstein was the guy who represents him and said that it was like an accident. He thought he was taking something else. But I guess this is not the first time that's happened. I remember I was working with a big kid from Greece, played at Wake Forest and played in Milan. He got suspended for like 3 years. One of the strength coaches gave him some like steroid cream or something like that, and he was just taking it. And he's not a guy that does any of the drug stuff or enhancement stuff, and he took it just on their evaluation, and he got suspended 3 years. Now they finally, like after 2, I think he started playing. And I guess that strength coach has done that in the past with other teams and whatnot. So she got in trouble and sued and things. But it is crazy, Bogues, with this. Like, you know, it's one thing if you're doing cocaine or marijuana, or I guess that's not illegal anymore, but like one of those things and get pinged for that. But like, imagine getting pinged just for like a pain drug.
Yeah, the painkiller one's tough because there's a lot of guys that go through mental battles with how much pain they're in. I know that for a fact because I've gone through it. But the rules are the rules, and you know. This thing, I think, like I said, Tramadol has side effects if you're on that stuff long term for your well-being.
Yeah.
You know, for your body, it's just not good. You know, I knew guys that were living off the hardcore anti-inflammatories in the NBA, and it just destroys your insides. Like I try to strategically take them when I had really bad days body-wise. I would take an anti-inflammatory, but I knew like if I take this shit every day, your tolerance level builds up. So then you need 2, then you need 3, then you need Tramadol, right? You need to go to the next level.
Right.
So you got to be real careful with all that shit. Did you see Pat Beverley got cut, pro? From
I didn't, but
his Euro
I
Cup
sort of
team?
thought that was going to happen. Yeah, I thought that was going to happen for one reason or another. But no, I just got that when you told me about it. I just found out today.
Yeah, Hapoel Tel Aviv. Look, one thing you learn with FIBA and European coaches is the coaches run the shit. He came from the NBA where players can have antics and do what they want and there's not much repercussion. So a little while ago, Pat Beverley was benched for the whole second half of a game. The media went to the coach in the press conference and said, why did you bench Pat Beverley? He said, because I'm the coach. That was all he said about it. Nothing else. I'm the coach. I benched him. Pat Beverley went on social media and posted laughing emojis to that. Was then suspended immediately. Came back, lasted a couple of, it didn't last too long. See you later, mate, out the door. And he was actually playing okay, 10, 4, and 4, which is good numbers in FIBA basketball.
Good numbers.
Yeah, really good numbers in FIBA basketball. But it just goes to show you the power that coaches have overseas. There's none of this, we're going to go to my agent, to the GM and try to get you fired. Like, they're just like, coach didn't even elaborate, bro, just said, I benched him because I'm the coach. Next question. And that was it. And funnily enough, the journalist is just like, okay. There was no, in the NBA, it'd be like 15 more questions about, is this good for your locker room? Are you scared he's going to get you fired? Like, it was like, all right, on to the next. We're used to this shit. So you kind of like the balances between the NBA and FIBA. And FIBA probably goes too far that way sometimes. But the NBA, I feel, has gone player empowerment too heavy. So it's kind of like nice to see a little bit of pushback.
Folks, have you ever seen these fucking Euro coaches? They look like FBI's most wanted, some of these fucking people. You think they're in they think they're locked up in Alcatraz and Shawshank, for God's sakes. They are not to be fucked with. They are not to be fucked with. They're tough dudes, man. And yeah. But look, I think that's why mostly the players that played in the NBA that do well in Europe are the guys who are like 10, 11, 12 on their roster. They sort of on. I mean, not all of them, but some. If you're 10, 11, 12 on the roster, in some cases that you sort of you're battling to stay. For the most part coachable. You got a work ethic. You understand it's not all about you all the time. And I think that it's tough, especially when an NBA player that was a starter and a really good player at one point of his career, goes over there. I think it's a tough thing because if they used to being treated a certain way, like you said in the NBA, and in Europe, it's just not like that. 2-a-day practices. It's not about team. I told you this story. It's not about scoring. Like, they don't care if you score over there. They don't, like in the NBA, you're a top line free agent. They expect you to score 25 a night or you get killed by the media. Over there, I remember when I was working with a guy named Henry Dormissant, when I was with Tim Grover in Chicago, and he was 7-figure guy in Europe for years, and he was playing in Greece. And I remember they signed like him. This is when it was going to be in Greece, the Final Four, and it was Panathinaikos and Olympiakos. I think he was playing for Olympiakos, and they had like him, Scooney Penn, who played at Ohio State, was a really good college player. But like, I would see that he would score like 11 or 9. I'm like, Henry, you going to get cut? He goes, nah, they don't care like that over here. They care if you're about the fans, the city, the organization, and like you play hard and you just like play with passion, play hard. If you score 9 and they win, they don't care. You score 25 and they lose, I don't know. You might have all your stuff in the fucking pool when you get home and your fucking apartment burnt down. Like they don't fuck around. And so like they don't care about that. And like it's all about team and culture and family, like like that, and playing with passion. It's hard to understand when you're just into the NBA. But yeah, I didn't know he got cut. I would have thought though, Beverley being a tougher. I mean, he is into a lot of the antics and stuff like that, but I would have thought he could have stuck it out a little bit longer, but it's a different world over there, and they don't take shit from anybody. They don't care. So, yeah, it's a interesting deal.
Yeah, it is. But see where if he ends up on a vet min deal somewhere. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if a team even bothers with his antics and how he goes about things. I don't think they will. One of these younger teams, maybe he gets a lifeline, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of where that all ends up, pro. What do you got on the WNBA for us? You got something you want to, talk to us about?
So Marina Mabrey. So I started reading about the story. A couple of people texted me this story, and so Marina Mabrey is a player that plays for the Connecticut WNBA team, and they got a little weird deal. So she got traded a year ago from Chicago. She demanded a trade from Chicago to Connecticut, to a winning team. So Connecticut picks her up. They ended up trading like a first round pick, a pick swap. They gave a lot of assets to acquire. They had a really good team, and they ended up losing in the semifinals in their playoff. And so they unloaded basically the whole starting 5, except maybe her. Right. She averages 14 a game. She's a good player, good scorer, 25th, 26th in scoring in the league. So she demands a trade, from Connecticut because everybody's gone and they didn't really replace them with much. So it's basically just her and a bunch of just okay players. And I think their picks traded, so they're not going to get a high pick or anything like that. So she demands a trade, and they're basically like, no, like, we're not trading you. We gave up a lot of assets to get you. And that's it. And then she starts complaining about it. Her agent starts saying about women's rights and this ain't right, and everybody starts tweeting about it like she doesn't want to be there. You can't keep her there. And, and I'm shaking my fucking head and I'm like, look, I don't care what league you're in. You got to be a professional. The red flags for me, and she's a good player. She played at Notre Dame, won a national championship, good player. But she's been on 4 teams and she's demanded trades from 3 of them: Dallas, Chicago, and now Connecticut. And like the professionalism of like, look, sometimes you get it where your team's not doing the right thing. Most of these organizations are run decently where they'll try to stack up your team the best they can. And you roll with it. But sometimes they're not. And yeah, if you have leverage and you can get out, and this is why LeBron, it's not LeBron's fault, like all his fault, but when he starts yelling about player empowerment and everybody sort of follows in on it, yeah, player empowerment, player empowerment. Yeah, like if LeBron James wants out of a place, he'll get out of a place. But when you're averaging 14 a game and you're not, you're not that elite player, you're not Aja Wilson or you're not Caitlin Clark or you're not, someone like that, and you're trying to demand a trade, like you don't have no leverage. They need somebody, and it sucks that they can't get you out, but it just goes to show you, like, it's not college where like you could transfer out. It's like you're under contract. This stuff has been collectively bargained where this is what your league bargained with and agreed with of how this is going to run. It's not 1 year contracts or you can go wherever you want. It's you got to play your contract out. If you get traded, great. If not, that's it. It's just an interesting dynamic with these players who think that just because they're sad that they don't have a good team that they could just go. It's and all your requests supposed to be handled like that. Look, I understand it sucks, but the team's the team, and if they feel as though you're under contract, they feel as though they're not going to get what they want for you, or they want to keep you. It is what it is. It's just you either have leverage or you don't.
Well, it goes both ways, pro. No pun intended, of course, but it does go both ways. And it's, if you're going to demand trades and throw toys out of the cot when things aren't going well, you can't then demand, I want out. Oh, give me my extension with your next breath when you get to the next team. Like, totally agree with you. You can't have it both ways. And I think the league, especially in the NBA, has gone too far that way where you can have guys. There's been cases of guys signing long-term extensions or long-term deals and then a year or two in being, I'm not happy. Well, that couldn't have just came out of nowhere. You knew you weren't happy when you signed the contract. Tell them, I don't want to sign an extension here, or I don't want to sign that big deal you're offering me that no one else is. And then they'll move on from you. Don't sign the contract and then bitch your way out, or vice versa, right? You can't be about player empowerment when you don't get to go where you want to go, and then on the same side, pout your way. People can argue how Jimmy handled his way, but that was a poor way to handle your exit out of Miami. Didn't get your extension, so you pouted your way out. You shut it down, right? So, and there's a strategy within that agents, this and that, and trying to push their way out. But it does go both ways, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing, I think, in the next CBA for owners in the NBA and the WNBA. It's like we're kind of getting screwed. Like we get, then you got people complaining, look, the Luka trade, put aside the fact that it was lopsided, heavily lopsided. You got people saying in the league, how can they do that? Well, it's like, it's the same way you railroad your way out of teams if you want to, right? It can't go both ways. So I totally agree. I think it's got to be even. It's got to be balanced. And right now, I think the world of professional sports, especially in the US, because the US has open slatted trades, unlike a lot of other countries, it's definitely slided the other way, bro.
Well, the only way, you got to protect the shield wherever you're at, and you got to carry that as a player. Like as a player, you have to do the best you can to keep yourself physically, mentally in shape and engaged with your team that you're on. And yeah, you might be happy, you may not be happy, but you have to play it out. You're making all this money, and I understand the WNBA doesn't make the money the NBA makes. I get it, but as an NBA player, you're making all this money that was built up. You signed this deal, and regardless of how this team's going to be, you got to play it out. Yeah, maybe you could demand a trade, and maybe they'll be like, okay, we'll this will work. We'll try to, your request is granted, and we're going to try to grant your request and go with that. But as a pro, you have to protect the integrity of the league, and the only way you do that is by playing it out, being competitive, and competing every day. It doesn't matter how you're feeling, how your team's doing. You got to bring it every day because these players, since Bob Cousy, Bob Pettit, and everything, from, Hakeem Olajuwon to Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, all these guys carried this league to make the money that you're making today because those guys carried it and brought it every night, most nights. And I think that you have to carry that to keep this league flourishing. You can't shut it down because you're not getting what you want. I really do and what about the NBA teams that sign these guys at 33, 34 to big contracts, and at 36, 37 they're stuck. They're not like, well, this player X, and they don't just they don't just throw you under the bus. A
You
lot
get
of
paid
times
out,
they
yeah.
try to do the best they can
100%.
and pay you
and
out.
it's guaranteed contracts, right? Like it's one of the few leagues that
Yeah.
your whole contract's guaranteed. You get hit by a bus tomorrow, you're getting the rest of your contract paid out. There's not many leagues in the world that do that. So
If I'm an NBA team, I would. And then again, I don't know how the finances work with this, but I know the NFL does it, the football in the United States, where a lot of times, like, your contract's not guaranteed, but they'll give you like 20 or 30% of your whole contract, up front with your signing bonus.
yeah,
And I wonder if that would work better. Now, financially, you have to put up a lot more money, but like giving them 20, 30% of their deal,
never pro.
having their contract for sure.
It'll never go away from
Yeah,
non-guaranteed. The non-guaranteed thing in the NBA will never, just because of the amount of games, they just they'll never give that one up. In the
But
CBA.
more money up front. So like,
What does that
I
matter?
sign $100 million.
Yeah.
Well, I sign $100 million
You get 30
contract.
of it today. I get what you're saying, but there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way the CBA
Yeah.
will ever flip towards that. I think it's going to be very, very hard. I think the only negotiating chip they have is shorter term guaranteed contracts rather than the 5-6 year ones. But that's going to be a very, very hard negotiation, and it is.
And that's tough for.
It is tough. Yeah, it's tough for the owners.
And that's tough for small market.
100%.
And that's tough for small market teams.
I think they should put a penalty on that. If you request a trade request publicly, or you start throwing your toys out of the cot, there should be like some sort of percentage that they just clip you automatically. Like public trade request, 10% of your salary comes back to us, and then we just keep increasing it. I don't know what they can do, but like there has to be something, because like you can just, there's so many ways to railroad your way out of a team, as we've seen, and then it just gets toxic. It's not fair for the fans, and especially you're paying $50 million a year to a guy that's like, I'm not playing until you trade me. And I've been around those kind of guys before that just were like, trade me, I'm not playing. I'm just gonna say I have back spasms, and you're like, that's also not right, because we're still paying you. If you want to sit out and wait for a trade, I think you should be allowed to sit out, but you don't get paid when you sit out, right? That's a fair trade off. We just won't pay you while you're sitting out, and because you're pissed at the team and you want to move on. Cool, we're not paying you for those days that you miss. That's a fair trade-off, and I bet you no one will ever sit out again, but then you've got the question of they get on the court and then play half to their potential and don't try hard and be dickheads at practice. So there's no real structure or guidelines you can put in that 100% fix this.
No, not at all. Not at all. There's no. It's like real life, right? There's no 100% fix to it. It's just, you got to do. I think you have these contracts, you sign them, you play for them, and then you just wait till they're gone. If you feel as though you're a flight risk to a team, and you feel as though that yourself, then don't sign 5-year deals. But they won't do that because they want that money. I get it. It's very alluring like that. But there's no guarantee way to do it. There's no good way that really benefits both sides of this thing. And look, the league's trying to do the best they can. It generates a lot of money. It gives these great contracts. It gives small market teams with restricted free agency. It gives them the chance to keep their rookies for at least 8-9 years before they move. Now those are shortening now with these trade requests, but it does give you that 8-9 years to build your team. I mean, look at Oklahoma City. Like, nobody wants to live in Oklahoma City, but what Sam Presti and those guys did is they built through the draft. They signed the right guys, and then they build winners where people want to come. Now, if you're a winning team, all these NBA cities is good places to live. No, don't get me wrong, but obviously LA, Miami, Phoenix and places like that are the number one destinations. But if you could build a winner, which Oklahoma City's done, don't forget, Presti's done this 3 times with Oklahoma. He's built 3 championship contending teams while he's been there since 2008. So to be able to do that, and that's great. But like most of these other teams, I mean, Milwaukee, if they didn't get Giannis, they'd be just going around the desert with a horse with no name, for God's sakes. They were lucky they got a franchise changing player, and then they were able to acquire some of these other players, and then players want to sign there. But if you're if you're an organization that can't really put it together and you just keep on drafting flop after flop and not signing the right guys, you could be in trouble.
Yeah, it makes things hard. And just finally, we're gonna start a new segment, I think, soon on this show, Pro. We're gonna another team to get hit by illegal betting in NCAA. We've got 2 more to add to it. We don't need to touch on it because we've touched on it to death. But North Carolina, AT&T, and Fresno State add them to the list, Pro. So I think we're at 5 or 6. But I think by the end of this season, probably gonna have 20 or 30 teams that get implicated in some sort of illegal betting. But that just is never going to end.
Here's my question to that, though, Bogues. Forget about the gambling part. The coach. Now, they're talking about that coach getting fired at Fresno State. And, because of institutional control. Now, that's an interesting one because, and I always thought this was interesting with college coaches. Like, there's only limited control you have over these kids and what they do, especially gambling. Like, if you take a kid that had, say, a sexual assault like in high school, and you take a guy like that, knowing that he did that, and then he does it again.
Yeah, fair enough.
That is 100% on the
domestic
coach,
violence,
right? But,
violence with a gun, all that kind
trouble,
of shit, drug use.
Any part with the
100%.
law.
Yeah.
And you take a guy like that, knowing that he already had an issue, and then he does it again, done. But a guy who, like, you just take and no issue with that, and then he gets caught for gambling on games. Do you cut the coach for that?
No.
You fire the coach,
like,
the AD?
You're going to have them put a tracker on their phones and who they're hanging with and who they're talking to. Like, obviously, they're making out like this was done in the coach's office with a gambler sitting in a mafia dude, the coach, and like, hey, here, place some bets in front of me. Like, come on, man. You don't know what half these kids are doing, right? Like, you can't babysit to that extent. So I think, I agree with you. It's his fault. I think maybe that might be the school finding a way to just move off him because they want to move off him. But yeah, it's just there's so much ramifications to all of this, and the NCAA's got a huge shit show on their hands. Now when you're throwing around this nil money, you might have kids on a team that are making $1 million a year, right? But then you got other kids on that team that are making nothing or making $50,000 and are super jealous and are like, you know what? I'll give a few tips or throw. I'm still a starter. I'm not making any nil money. But I might do some stuff for some betting people and make $200-300K because Joe Blow, my locker roommate here, is driving in a Bentley to our games. Jealousy plays a part as well. It's easy pickings now. I think it's even easier now. You argue the nil stuff probably can stop that because there's money involved. I think it makes it worse because it's the fringe guys, right, that are like pissed off because they're not making money like the other guys.
Well, Fresno State, Bogues, I would think that they might have maybe 150,000 total NIL money, maybe 200,000 for the whole team. They're going to the Pac-12, which is basically there's really nobody in the Pac-12 anymore in the Pac-10 conference. Now they're going to go in the Pac-12 I think next year, so they might have 150, 200 grand. I would think that the highest paid guy is like maybe 75 to 100 grand.
Yeah,
tops. So.
But even the point, you're playing against other schools where guys are making $1 million, $2 million. The jealousy is going to play its part. You're like, screw it, man. Like, if someone's going to give me $300-400K for a season to throw a few games, I'll do it. And I understand the method and the thinking for some of these kids. And I think part of that now is because you just got so much money involved in the NCAA, and the NCAA's got an issue. They got to put, the water bottle's overflowing. They've got no cap. They don't know what do we do. But now you got agents. Now you got people siphoning money off kids or taking clips off kids for commissions, and there's no real rules around that. There's no agent credentials really for NIL yet, I don't believe, Pro. So you got the go-betweens you've spoken about. Like, it's a nasty mess. It's literally the wild, wild west, right? Like, it's kind of like people just rolling around doing their thing. So it will be interesting to see how many more teams get caught up in this, but I don't think it's the last, Pro. All right, useful or useless. Dyson Daniels, Pro, already has more total steals today than anyone in the whole of last season, Pro.
That's pretty useful, Bogues, in my opinion. Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got more total steals today than anyone did over the course of the whole of last season. He's still got, a month or two left or 2 months left of NBA basketball. So he might be up there. I don't know what the record is. Probably need to look that up, but he might be out there with the record. And I know with Wemby out, he's probably going to miss the amount of games pro for Defensive Player of the Year. I think Dyson's got to be a shoo-in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really see any other player that's even close to him defensively. Bam Adebayo maybe, and I don't think it's even close there. But I think he gets it for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree too. So, Warriors are 4-1 in the Jimmy era pro. Useless.
Useless for now,
Yep.
but I mean, talk to me in a month, we'll see. But yeah, for now it's just too short term. But yeah, they've had a nice little run with him in the lineup.
I agree. Still too early honeymoon period, but let's see it in about 10 or 15 games will give us a nice feel for it. All right, pro ratings issues. We were spoken about ratings for many different reasons, but an article has just come out. We just saw the Blazers win by 53 points against Charlotte, which is just absolutely ridiculous because the Blazers, not very good themselves, just beat a team 50 by 53, which is just crazy. We've spoken about the amount of threes being shot. So in this game, what the blowout was I looked it up. Portland made 23s, Charlotte made 5 for the game. So there's most of your points. There's 45 points, right? But someone's gone in and looked at the numbers around blowouts in the NBA, and the NBA has seen more 50-point blowouts in the last decade than in any other decade. So for context, in the 2020s, so far, this is just so far in the 2020s, we've had 19 50-plus blowouts. Every other decade before that, besides the 40s and 50s, there was 0. The 60s was every other decade is a single digit. We had 8 in 2010s, 6 in the 2000s, 7, 6, 9, and 3. You get the picture, right? So people are now saying, is that a part of why people are tuning out? That it's just so lopsided? I think the argument could be yes. It's still a small number compared to most NBA games, but 19 out of all the NBA games played isn't a lot. But I think that coincides with the 3-ball. It's just the amount of mass threes that teams are shooting. We saw Boston go through that little lull mid-season where they couldn't make a 3 because they shoot so much of them. They'll lose into like Toronto and they just had a bad spell. I think it correlates back to the amount of threes. And when you shoot that many, you look at this game, they win by 53 and they outscored them by 45 points from 3. I think it's a direct correlation of just the 3-ball, but it does factor in a little bit to why people are tuning out.
Well, my opinion, Bogues, is I think there's like all these little buckets of why people are tuning out the NBA, and I think the 3-pointer is part of it. I don't think there's one dominating effect, right? I think there's the players not playing. I think there's the cost of everything, everything going up. I think it's
so expensive,
the
bro.
style
Just
of
to
play.
cut you off, man. So I've got a friend that's going over to Golden State of all places, and he hit me up and goes, "Hey, can you see if you can get some tickets?" And he goes, I've just got a quote for some upper bowl nosebleeds, $160.
Yeah.
Mind blowing for a regular season game.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. Those tickets back in the day, what were they? $20, $30 back in the day? 15, 20 years, like they were not $160 for nosebleeds. That's insane.
So the package is that you hand over the $250. All right. I've heard that they're doing this in Golden State. They hand over the $250. You automatically give the person that's going to rob you your wallet. They smash your car window before you even walk in, so you know how to affect it, and they slash your tires. And you get mugged on the way out. For $250 is not a bad deal in San Francisco, folks. But yeah, folks, I just think it's a collection of things, and some of it's just, what are you going to do? I think the politics is in it. I think the players, just the style of play people don't like. But I don't think it's just one thing. I just think it's a collection of things.
Load management.
And some people are like,
there's a lot.
Yeah, some people like that. Some people like this. Some people don't like this. Look, you know how sensitive people are today. And it is what it is. Look, you like NBA basketball, you don't like NBA basketball. It is what it is. It's just, they got to continue to do it. But here's the thing. You could complain about it. We could say how bad the ratings are, but they keep on signing these rights deals that are ridiculously, it's just ridiculously high deals. They just keep signing them. So there's got to be some value. You keep saying, which makes sense. It's like one of the only live things that you could invest in as far as
Advertisers.
watching live games, advertisers and things like that. Yeah, people love to say, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. No, I just think that it's just a collection of things. You know how people are. We're in the food critic, everybody's a critic on anything online these days. And I think people are just some things just trigger people. And I think mostly it's the expense of the game. And you're trying to bring a family of 4 or 5, even if you get cheap seats, and not everybody's 200 or 150 for upper bowl nosebleed seats. A lot of these teams have that $10 deal, but then you got to spend $15 for a burger, $12 for a drink, this and that.
Parking.
It's just so expensive. Yeah. Parking.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
All that
growing
stuff.
up, pro, I wouldn't be able to go those prices. I remember my first ever NBA game. We went on a tour with the AIS Australian team. Mm-hmm. We went to Denver versus Seattle in Seattle. It was a preseason game, and we literally were touching the wall. That we were dead last row nosebleeds. I think it was this is a preseason game. It might have been $18 each or something like that. This was back in the early 2000s. But if you're going to pay $160 for nosebleeds times 4 of you in a family, you're getting out under $1,000, just under $1,000, $800 by the time you pay parking, fuel costs, all that bullshit. That I wouldn't be able to go. My dad would look at you and be like, "Are you crazy? We got a TV. We bought that. Watch it on there." You're just it's tough. It's tough, man. Just one of those things.
No, I remember spending $15 to go to the game. I remember once, I wanted to buy Atlanta Hawk tickets at the Boston Garden of the Celtics, probably '92. My mom takes me to there to buy seats, and I go to buy a couple of seats, and they said, "Oh, we only have restricted view." So the old Garden Bogues, right? The middle bowl, not the floor seats, not the seats 20 rows behind the bench, but in between. The Garden was so bad for viewing. The upper nosebleed seats, there was an overhang. So on some of these seats, you can only see half the court. You could only, if the guy was bigger than 4'11", you can't see him. You can only see waist up. So I go, no, I don't want these. So what happened was I say no, but 2 guys that were scalpers that were basically, they were just people trying to scam people. One guy goes, "Oh, you want seats? You want seats?" So I'm this 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. I'm like, "Yeah, they said restricted view, so I don't want those." He goes, "Oh no, I get them. So he goes, "How much you got on you?" Of course, Jack in the fucking Beanstalk fucking story. I'm like, "Oh, I got I don't know, $40." And he goes, "Oh, here they are. And I got the seats, and I go, "Well, they say restricted view." And they go, no, that's only because it's a sellout. You're good. And I'm fucking "Oh yeah, that's fine. All right, I'll do that." And then I go, like I said, I think I just got fucked right now. So I go across the street to a ticket agency, and I said, "Are these good seats?" He goes, "Pal, they might as well sell you those fucking seats so ripped up already." I'm like, motherfucker. But no, they were $15-20 a seat though. It's unbelievable what the charge is now with all the expenses. But then again, the salary is probably the highest paid guy was Larry Bird, making $8 million a year.
Exactly.
So obviously the expenses for teams and things
the NCAA tournaments, when they play them in Superdomes, I remember there would be always people would buy the completely restricted viewing just to be in the stadium, and they'd watch it on the big screen, which was I always found interesting in America. They'd have bleachers that were kind of behind the scoreboard. And people would buy them and not be able to see the game, just to be in the environment of the crowd and just watch it on TV. So interesting nonetheless. All right, Aussie of the week. We'll move on. Almost done for the NBA stuff. Josh Giddey has started this week very, very well. So we're going to give it to him 25.5 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals over 2 games. Pro's favorite part, he's 7-11 for 3 in that span. So shooting it quite well. Must have spent All-Star break getting in the gym getting his confidence back. He kind of had a little downhill spiral pre All-Star, so shot it really, really well, and Dyson second in that. So now puts Giddey in the leaderboard at 6 and Dyson at 5, Ben Simmons at 1. He's ruled out, there's not enough weeks left, but it's going to be a tight one to the finish, Pro.
Yeah, for sure. Giddey has the best chance of it because of the team he plays on to put up numbers, right? And he's just struggling shooting the ball, and it's just up and down with that. But, I don't know. I think that Daniels with just the way he's playing it and the way he's dominating defensively, I think it'll be really tough though, for Giddey to really be consistent enough in that set. And we don't really have that many games left. Most teams have like 25, 20, 26 games left in the season. So I think it'll be tough to make up some ground, but you never know.
I disagree. I think Giddey's numbers with the trades they've made, the ball's going to be in his hands more. I think his numbers will be better. Their team won't be. So that's where the Aussie of the week might get skewed a little bit, because I think that Giddey's numbers will be better. Dyson's probably going to be competing for play-in important games, whereas I think they're going to let Giddey run this next kind of couple of months. I don't think they're making the playoffs, so his numbers theoretically should be better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so
maybe you're right.
Yeah, maybe we need to change the protocol next season where we have to value in wins a little bit, but we'll see, because you could be on a bad team and just clock up big numbers and not win games, but that kind of, but it's tough. It's a tough one. Fact or fake news, Pro? What do you got?
Both.
Now try to explain this one better, because all our viewers are like, Pro can't explain his way out of a paper bag with this fact or fake news. He's like, well, this is fact and then fake news. They're just the people. It's what the people are saying, not me. They're saying, can you explain it in a nice one sentence for your fact or fake news, Pro?
Wow. Jesus.
Not me. This isn't me. Don't shoot the messenger, brother.
I'm not shooting you. No, I'm good. All right.
Rattled him for his fact or fake news.
No, this week I heard Kyrie Irving saying that he would love to play for Australia. Fact or fake news? Kyrie Irving will be suiting up for the Boomers next for the next Olympics.
Very
fact
good, Pro.
Or fake
there you
news,
go.
folks.
So you put you under pressure. You got it fucking done.
All 7 of those fucking viewers could go fuck themselves, by the way, folks.
All 7 of them. I think it's fake news just because I know the FIBA protocol better than most of these people in mainstream media. You ever rarely can leave a team like Australia, the US, a developed country for a developed country, right? Where you can get away with it a lot of times is if it's your homeland. So we have a lot of South Sudanese Australians here, Pro, that have migrated at a young age. A lot of them have gone back to play for South Sudan. That even if they've played for Australia, they'll usually get that exemption because it's an up-and-coming country, developing country, right? I think that's where he's going to have an issue. He's played for Team USA. FIBA don't like when you've already played. And then on top of that, they don't like – I think Team USA will potentially get involved. And people have to remember, Kyrie's going to be 37 years old in 2028. We have a group now with the – do you take him because he's a game changer? Yes. But you got to factor in you got a young group that's building for 28 to try and do well. And then the big cherry is 32 is in Brisbane in Australia, Pro. So I would say fake news based on logic and FIBA. People say, well, it's a no-brainer and you should do this and you should do that. Every team would love a Kyrie Irving because he's a game-changing. In a game, you got a guy who can literally get you a bucket late in games. I just think his age and the FIBA thing is gonna be, fake news that out of here, Pro.
Yeah, I say fake news just for the fact that I think at that age, taking care of himself in the off season and getting rest. And if he's still playing, you never know if he's going to still play or just decide to call it quits. I doubt the Muddies is too good to call it quits, but I really feel as though that he won't play just based on that, just from rest. And maybe what you're saying is probably true too, but I'm just saying, I just think it's more a factor for him just saying it now. Because you know how people are. They like to say things and not necessarily follow through with them.
He's been prodded by Australian journalists numerous times, and he's just like, I'd love to play for Australia. That's his answer. So it's like, okay, anyone would say that, right? He was born here. That's the other thing. He was born here, so he should be able to get the paperwork easily done. But still, we aren't the US where you're born, you instantly get it. You still got to go through a process to get your citizenship and whatnot. So it's not as easy said and done. But yeah, just a lot of good media attention for it. I just don't know if it's going to happen. If it does, we'll see. I mean, I would have loved for him to say that in 2015 when I was fucking playing, because we had a team that's probably the one piece we needed. We needed a full-on closer to close out those 2 fourth place finishes that escaped the medal for us, right? Could have put your hand up then, buddy. I would have done everything I could. I would have been giving you a place at my house, giving you a car to drive while you're in Australia, whatever you need, man. Not when you're 37 and retired. So,
good one,
Pro. The people will be proud of your directness with that fact or fake news.
Yeah, I would like our listeners too to describe in one sentence or less why they're still living in their parents' basement. All right, just so I'd like to know that in one sentence.
We don't really
or
have
fucking
basements
less,
in
by the way.
Australia, but fair enough, bro. Basements aren't a big thing here for
Blah
some
blah
reason.
blah
We
blah
don't,
blah.
no, we don't.
Blah blah.
I'm serious.
Well, they flood. Yeah, they flood. I wouldn't want them either.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of basements, bro.
Neither in Texas.
All right, pro. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely. See you guys.
All right, on to some NBL and breaking today. Taran Armstrong has signed a two-way deal. Former Cairns Taipan. He signed a two-way deal with the Golden State Warriors. Had a lot of Golden State Warriors fans hitting me up. What can we expect? What kind of player is he? Look, he's a young and up-and-coming player here in Australia. A high-usage guy, mainly in the pick and roll. Really good out of the pick and roll. Shots starting to come together, but he's a fighter, aggressive, really good at getting 2 feet in the paint and finishing. Gets to the free throw line a lot. Still improving defensively, needs a little bit of work there, but most young guys do. I think a really, really good pickup by Golden State. Whether he plays a lot or not, I don't know. The two-way thing is a good insurance policy. You have a couple of injuries here and there, you can bring him into lineups, but he knows how to play. What I like about him, he's got a lot of fire. He's got some shit to him that he'll get after it. He's not intimidated. Kind of sneaky, long stride, quick. He's not a burst guy that's just going to sprint by you, but he just gets by you. Like, he's big enough to finish in the paint. So he'll be a nice acquisition, whether he plays big minutes for the Warriors or goes down to the G League a little bit. I think it's a good young guy to have in your system for a couple of years, and one of the best young prospects coming out of the NBL. So good luck to Taran there. A couple of retirees, Clint Steindl, Jason Giddey, have both retired from the NBL, both long-serving veterans of the NBL. We wish them all the most success. Kind of real important pieces for the NBL over the years. I think Steindl championship with couple with Perth and then Tasmania. I'm not sure Giddey got one. I could be wrong. I don't think he got a championship. Schuller is gone ahead of Brisbane, so we recorded the podcast Monday last week. By Monday afternoon, it came out that he was fired. We had that mail a couple of weeks ago that it just wasn't going well for him, so they've moved off him. They're moving on. Whether they what route they go, there's rumours Chase Buford's in the mix, which is an interesting one. So we'll see if they can get someone like him, whether they go Trevor Gleeson, who's available, whether they go overseas and find an American coach, who knows, but we wish Brisbane all the best. I think they're a sleeping giant as far as an NBL team. I think there's a lot of potential with that club. The fans and people around really like that club, but they just want some success. You know, they want some success and some consistency on being good. And I think the moving to the bigger arena out there in Boondall was a great move, and commentated a few of their games where they had 7,000-8,000 people. They truly love basketball, but they need something. So get it right, Brisbane. Hire someone that can lead your club for the next 3, 4, 5 years development wise, and hopefully get back on your feet there. The JackJumpers sell for $35 million. Alto Capital Group have purchased there, so they get a great number. I mean, it's Larry's spoken about the fact that he's been trying to sell for a while. He had potential bigger offers than the one, but he wanted the right people and the right group to be part of the NBL team. And this has been a great result for all NBL owners, the NBL and Tasmania. Congratulations to them. So hopefully the new ownership group can really put it together. Moving on to some interesting stuff with Adelaide. Rumours that they want to re-sign Montrezl Harrell. Interesting because I've spoken to some people that know the happenings behind the scenes there, and it seemed like not was all it seemed to be off the court there in Adelaide. As we know, there were some issues in the locker room and whatnot, but the fact that Adelaide wants to re-sign Montrezl, where you speak to players that were involved and coaches and staff and whatnot, that it was every day was hard. Montrezl was known to show up to training sessions and practice in those big chains that you saw him wear, the big massive chains. Would practice in them. Would leave practice when he wanted, go to the locker room, missing team buses. There was all kinds of things apparently going on. Now, this is not from me. Don't shoot the messenger. This is from people very close to the situation. My concern for Adelaide, is do you bring someone like that who's a huge star? Don't get me wrong, fantastic basketball player, was awesome in the NBL, gets it done, a beast of presence, but your off-court stuff, you got to factor that in a little bit. So it will be interesting to see whether they bring him back, whether they address the off-court issues and say, hey, mate, we want to bring you back, but we need to improve on these things a little bit. I'm probably thinking, if I'm a betting man, that he won't be back, but we know the NBL loves having his name attached to it. We know that they might even pay some of his salary now moving forward. I think they did last season as an ambassador. How does that fit in with Adelaide? Adelaide's a very proud basketball club. As much as I've gone at them at times, and we've had a little rivalry. I played junior basketball tournaments up there. They love their basketball. I want to see them do well. I kind of wanted to see everyone in the NBL do well and make it a better league, because if everyone does well, it all collectively gets better. But I'm out. The jury's out for me on that one. I think Trez is great for the league when he's on the court, but is he detrimental to his club when he's off the court? That's the question. And do you sell your culture, what you're trying to build for a short-term gain of a star, or do you start looking towards, hey, let's try to get some sustained success over the next 4, 5, 6 years, so we're not up and down like a yo-yo? And to an extent, many clubs go through it. I mean, Sydney's right now in a similar situation where, there's been reports throughout the season, not me saying it, that there were some cultural issues at times that needed to be addressed. And, a big thing for us is we need to find people that come into that club and care about the club and want to do well. So it will be interesting to see if Adelaide do re-sign Trez. And a second NBL team has been floated once again. Now rumored to be Sydney. It was Gold Coast. That's kind of went dead a little bit, but that might come back now because an arena has been pledged on the Gold Coast. Wellington's the other one in New Zealand that comes up sometimes. I doubt it's going to be another New Zealand team. Newcastle gets spoken about. Canberra gets spoken about. Don't think they're ready yet. Second NBL team and rumored to be a Next Stars team. Will be very interesting to see how that goes. So I'm just not sure how you get a local community, especially in Sydney, can be a fickle crowd at times, very tribal, how you get them to support a team that is full of players that are going to be there for 1 year, maybe 2. You need to identify with your players on your team. You got to have some guys that are there long term, build relationships with the fans. I just don't know how the Next Star team works. I'll be scratching my head wondering before it happens if it will work. How will the Next Stars team work on a competitive level? Will they be able to win? Will they be able to, it's young kids that are learning to play the game still, no matter what you want to say. The NBL is a professional league. So that was rumoured over the last week in Sydney. So we'll see where that goes. But a lot of NBL news. And now we move on to the end of this week. We'll start moving on back to the NBL finals. We did those previews last week if you want to check those out. And we'll catch you all next week for some more NBA and NBL news.